Hello, Palladium fans. I'm here once again with Kevin, continuing our recording of the history of Palladium Books. And today we're leaving Rift's Earth behind, and we are stepping into the Megaverse for what I would consider kind of the first time. I mean, we've had all of these different games that have all used the same system, and Rifts had this promise that we were going to see all of these different worlds. But the Dimension Book series was really the first time we ever saw something outside of kind of the core line getting tied in. And we start with Wormwood, which, as I was saying to you beforehand, I get this book and I'm expecting a role-playing book. And what I got was this weird, grimdark fantasy bio horror Cronenberg meets Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing sort of body horror weirdness. And I was like, what the hell is this? So before we get into Wormwood, right, you've been putting out source books and conversion books and dimension book and world books. What was the impetus for saying, all right, now we have to start another kind of sub bracket in Rifts, and we need to start exploring other dimensions?
Well, I mean, just the whole premise of Rifts, and it just, so with Rifts Earth, it's pretty much all these creatures and beings and people coming to Rifts Earth. But what about traveling to other worlds?
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea behind, the Dimension Book series.
So how did you meet Timothy Truman and Flint Henry? Did you approach them for doing a Dimension book? Did they approach you? Like, I know they're comic book artists. Like, what was the story of that connection there?
I had met Tim Truman at a couple of conventions, although I'm not positive he remembered that. And I think they had this idea that they wanted to do, and they reached out, if I recall correctly. So Timothy Truman reached out to me.
Okay.
And I'm a huge fan of Tim Truman. And I take it back. I had met Tim Truman at a couple of conventions. And then I had hired him to do some of the art in Rift's Vampire Kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
And that went really well. And I think he had fun with it. So he then, a few months later, reached out to me and said, Kev, I want to pitch you. I already put it in the mail, a bunch of the art. Because, again, this is before computers are...
Oh, yeah.
An innocuous, everyday, omnipresent part of our lives. Because I put a bunch of stuff in photocopies. I sent you a bunch of photocopies and a pitch document, but I want to pitch you here too. And so he pitched me on the phone for this idea for Wormwood. And I thought it was great. And that's why when you mentioned it sounded like, something from one of DC's Vertigo lines, it's not surprising because Timothy Truman and Flint Henry had done work for DC and other comic book companies. And we hammered out a deal. He did a ton of art, including he and Flint did a comic strip inside the book. They did a lot of the artwork. And then I forget whether Tim introduced me. Here's just
the comic book panels is sort of a throwback to TMNT, where you had the comic book panels in the RPG. But
and
there's nothing like it. There's nothing like this comic book.
Well, and I loved it. I loved it because we were planning on doing a Dimension Books, and he reached out and I probably told him about it on a phone call, and he saw that as an opportunity, and boom. And I'm like, holy crap, I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's do it. And we did. So he sent a bunch of the character drawings and the comic strip, and there was like an outline of different stuff. And then I don't remember if he introduced me to Roger Peterson or if Roger had reached out too. And that was a kick. So Roger Peterson did a lot of the art, the Spadillos, the OCC illustrations, some of the monsters, and he had a real good feel for things. So he filled in the blank really nicely for the stuff that Flint and Tim couldn't do. And I even inked a bunch of those of Raj's because was just starting to get out. I think I got him when he was like a whopping 18 or 19 or 20. And I was very excited about him too because he's the grandson of George Evans, a famous EC comic book illustrator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his grandpa did mostly, he was most famous at least for doing a lot of the aerial combat stories.
Oh, wow.
Because EC, everyone knows EC Comics from Tales from the Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
Or Weird Science, but they did all kinds of books. They had Weird Science and Weird Science Fantasy, and they were most famous for the horror line. But they also had like some kind of a psychodrama book, and they had oh god, what did they call it? Something combat.
Right. I mean, we were talking about that with Marvel and DC had their like Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos. And Sergeant Rock and the Black Box, those all started as
Enemy Ace. Yep. And so EC Comics in the 1950s had some similar comics. And so Evans was famous. Did I say Greg Evans before? George Evans. George Evans was famous, at least in my mind, because the art was just beautiful. I mean, I have the whole EC collection when they released it in like black and white in these big slipcase books. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, George Evans, I just loved his stuff. And Raj was like thrilled that I even knew who Grandpa was, right? Because at this point, most people didn't. I mean, EC went out of business except for Mad Magazine by 1960. Yeah. There was none of the other books. So, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm working with you. And not to be a fanboy on Grandpa, but and you're pretty damn good too.
Well, so Wormwood, I don't even know how to explain it. If you haven't picked up Wormwood, go pick up Wormwood and then come back here. But it's this very, I think today we might call it grimdark. In this, yes. It looks hopeless, right? It is this symbiotic world with all of these, again, feels very in like Rift's World Book 2 Atlantis. We have all of these parasites and symbiotes and things that attach this bio.
Like one of the player characters is something called a worm speaker.
Yes,
and actually has like these alien worms coming out of his mouth, and it's
with the APOC, which was always my favorite because again. The APOC is this guy who is a complete and total villain serving the demons of Wormwood and had a moment of revelation and undergoes this process that completely kind of inverts him and turns him into a champion of light on a world of darkness.
It's this weird world where, good guys, bad guys, like the whole world is kind of divided into good guy, bad guys. Mm-hmm. So you have the demon hordes. Like there's another great shot without his mask.
Yeah.
I sometimes wondered if The Witcher was kind of inspired by
the APOCs.
Yeah. I mean, probably not. Parallel development happens.
Parallel development being what it is, but
happens a lot more often than you think. Although our books, I don't know why, but I'm always surprised when I find out who and how many like famous people our books inspired, which is amazing and awesome. But so maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. But when you get a pile of Tim Truman and Flint Henry gut-busting, brain-bending art, I mean, it's hard not to come out with something that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
mean, like the Holy Terror, that's another good guy.
Right, and the Holy Terror, I feel we if you're not familiar with Wormwood, because I know at least several Rifts groups that I played with, never like Dimension books were they were world book, source book only kind of tables. Yep. But I think we get a little bit of the Holy Terror kind of revisited in South America with the anti-monster. There's some
Yes.
parallels there. So if you're familiar with South America and not Wormwood, there you go. There's kind of our Bioborg that.
No, it's great stuff. I mean, the planet is alive. There's a lot of really, really cool ideas behind it, and like the demons are like the dominant species, and humanoids are battling to, basically the forces of darkness have kind of won on this world, and they're kind of drawing their energy and powers and different things from this living planet. And then the APOC and a bunch of other heroes.
It is very much a setting where to for the forces of light to win, they have had to become the forces of maybe gray.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say they're all kind of Wolverine type heroes in the Wolverine Deadpool kind of sense.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but many of them.
Yeah.
And it's just this wild, talk about a wild setting. It's truly unique. I only made one mistake with that book, and even with that mistake, we sold like 100,000 copies of Wormwood. I had it so it was completely self-contained. So you could rift to Wormwood, but it's supposedly impossible to rift out of Wormwood. And by the way, everyone watching, just make it happen. Just
that's what we always did.
Part, so you can come and go and bring those characters in and out of your campaign, and because they're just too cool, too good. I think my logic at the time was because you had so many horrible demonic things, I didn't necessarily want them to be dragged to Rift's Earth. Or have someone go, I'm going to invade Rift's Earth with the forces of darkness in Wormwood. But there are so many great characters, and APOC would be fantastic on Rift's Earth.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those characters would be great. And just have fun with it. Ignore that part.
It's the first dimension book. We had things that had to get ironed out as you went forward. Well, I have always wanted like a Wormwood 2, Electric Boogaloo, like that, or a Wormwood comic again, because the comic, if you have not read Wormwood, go buy Wormwood from palladiumbooks.com right now, because it's worth it for the comic, because it sets the stage for everything you need to know beautifully. Beautifully.
It really does.
It really, yeah. Well, then,
let me interject something. So I don't interrupt. I just want to say there is a Wormwood comic, but it's not ours. Someone else came out with a comic book called Wormwood, and I think it's kind of multi-dimensional, but more on the level of like Ready Player One kind of thing.
Okay.
I think it's more of a video game type.
So no
thing.
relation to.
It came out several years ago. Time has no meaning for me anymore.
That's right.
So I want to say it came out like 10 years ago, the Wormwood comic. I don't know how it did. I don't remember if it was Image or Dark Horse or what.
Yeah.
But it's not our Wormwood.
No.
Or Tim and Flint's Wormwood.
I mean, that dimension book is a unique gem among all of the Palladium books. Like, kind of this, what the hell was that? Like, it was just so beautifully dark and contained, and everything you need. You could just play a Wormwood campaign out of that book for a decade. Like, there's just that much good stuff in that book.
Yep. And it's funny you used the term grim earlier, because I don't know if it was Tim's first comic book or one of his first comic books, but Tim Truman wrote and illustrated. I don't know if he wrote it. I take that back. He illustrated a book called Grimdark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a good comic. I don't know why it's in limbo someplace. I think it belonged to a company that went out of business.
That's always tough.
the rights might be just kind of in limbo. But I always loved Grimjack myself.
Oh yeah, I think I remember seeing Grimjack and going, "This feels familiar," and I don't know why. And now you have put two and two together in the back of my brain, and I went, "Oh, okay." Well, all right. So before we get into the next one, at least in my mind, this is the Dimension book that kind of took off on the Dimension book line. But you brought CJ, and I don't want to butcher a last name.
Oh, Corella.
CJ Corella. I was pronouncing it correct all of those years to my Riffs group if they happen to be watching. So you brought CJ Corella in. I know we had South America, we had conversion books, but Phase World kind of hits the market. So what was this initial pitch for Phase World? Because, I mean, if you look at the Dimension book line, Phase World dominates the Dimension book line like North America kind of dominates the World book line. So how did Phase World, I mean, if you're not familiar, Phase World is, if Rift's Earth is Kevin's Star Wars, then this is the Star Warsiest Star Wars of Rifts. Right? This is high space opera with magic and technology. Everything you love about Rifts dialed up to 14 and set in not one, not two, but three galaxies, which again always makes me think of the Lensman from Doc Smith. So how did you get CJ on as a staff writer, and then how did you? What was his pitch for Phase World?
Well, CJ had reached out to us and had sent me in an unsolicited manuscript for, or at least part of a manuscript for Pantheons of the Megaverse.
Oh yeah,
and that was his first work for me, and I thought it was great. I thought the writing was excellent. The concepts were really good. And, we published the book, and Pantheons did very well. And then CJ said, "Hey, I've got ideas for some other stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, like what?" And he pitched the idea for Phase World and the Three Galaxies. And, he was a big Rifts fan, of course, and Palladium fan. And so he really had a good handle on the game system and what would make a good Dimension book. And part of it was, he sat back and went, how can we take Rifts and make it a space opera setting? And that was Phase World. So Phase World itself is ruled by these weird giant aliens known as Prometheans, and they're quite mysterious, and they have phase technology and phase magic. This is all CJ. And on their world is like what Rift's Earth might become someday, in the sense that it's called Phase World, not just because of their phase technology, but because they have, I forget what he calls them exactly, these gates where you can go to any of like 1,000 worlds that the Prometheans know about, and have connections to. And so you can go to Phase World. A lot of alien races go to Phase World so they can just be teleported from one world to another world. And that's Phase World's sort of big claim to fame, besides the phase technology. And then, of course, you got good guys, bad guys. You've got, crazy, ninjas and type looking guys. And, you've got sort of the equivalent of the Klingons, and you kind of have the equivalent of the Federation, but they're very different and very cool. And, there's a bunch of other things in there. You can play space pirates and space wolfen and all kinds of cool stuff. Naruni, he's also the guy who created the Naruni.
Oh, yeah, which are, these mercenary tech barons who sell weapons to every side at all times just to make a buck.
Yeah,
And I love
CJ did Rift's Mercenaries before this, and that kind of cinched it. Where it's like, oh yeah, this guy knows his shit, and I'm going to give him a lot of freedom. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, it's okay. Because, I mean, you brought up a point that I wanted to bring up. What is great about Phase World to me is that it parallels Rift's Earth and a lot of the other Palladium books in kind of important ways. And as you said, Phase World is what Rift's Earth could be someday. And so we see a lot of these parallels, right? You have the United Worlds of Warlock paralleling some of the things like Lazel and Tolkien before the Coalition Wars. You've got Cosmo Knights as the cosmic parallel to the Cyber Knights, and sort of, preview the fact that maybe the Cyber Knights aren't going to be as, unified, because we had fallen Cosmo Knights, like somebody given that much power sometimes can't can't cleave to the ideals that they have. They brought, CJ brought the Wolfen into, from Palladium Fantasy, which again, one of my favorite races in all of fantasy. I mean, the fact that there's Roman parallels there, I mean, okay, like but what was it? What was their the Quatoria, where they're essentially good T-100s from Terminator, right? There are these cyborgs who have had their brain and heart and lungs put into these endoskeletons, and then they're covered with flesh and fur, so they look like Wolfen until they start taking damage. And then you're like, oh god, this, and they're cops, they're coming, so they're like the T-100 except good, or the T-800. It hasn't been that long. I just watched those with my son.
When I thought the Krieger were really cool,
yes.
And there's just all kinds of good
silhouettes. There's so much good stuff packed into Phase World, and like I said, Phase World comes to dominate the
Kevin Long did
the art in that book. All of the spaceships and the alien races. That actually ends up on the cover of the Phase World source book, doesn't it? That power armor. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So why do you think that Phase World took off the way it did?
I think because there's not a lot of space opera role-playing games out there. I mean, quick, name me 5. I mean, there's Gamma World, there's Phase World and the Three Galaxies.
There's Star Wars.
But I mean, if you include licenses, there's Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah,
but now you really start to immediately, that's 4.
Yeah, that's basically it.
I mean, do you include Traveler? Traveler's kind of a unique thing unto its own.
Yeah, Traveler's not really space opera. It doesn't have kind of the high grandiose. I mean, even Star Trek it lacks that operatic sort of everything kind of dialed up to 11 like space opera does. And then again, from a lot of us, space opera equals something nearly magical about it. And whether it's the Jedi or the Green Lantern Corps, the Green Lantern rings, or the Lensmen, their lenses, like it's this idea that, hey, there's also stuff out there that kind of has this science fantasy feel. And if you have that as the definition, you got Star Wars, you've got Gamma World, Phase World, and then crickets. Like
and it's an imaginative, while it may be inspired by a lot of things you mentioned, and then including comic book elements, but it's all like all of our stuff, it's all very unique, very original. It's got cool stuff unto itself, and I think that there's and again there's just good guys, bad guys, a nice combination of stuff, and it's good.
I like that you mentioned the Krieger, as kind of the Klingon analog, because there was also a little bit of, this is going to date me a little bit, but the consortium.
That sounds right. Of civilized worlds.
Yeah, the consortium, the CCW.
Yeah.
Versus the Krigor. There's a lot of kind of Cold War.
Yep.
Kind of West versus East.
Yep.
Baked into that, and again, at the time, right, the original William Gibson script for Alien 3 was very much that conflict. Like, not the movie we got, but you can go listen to the audiobook that they took his script and developed it into an audio drama. Very much this idea of sort of West versus East conflict that, kind of pervades at least those two of the three. And then and you have the United Worlds of Warlock, who are just out there kind of doing their own thing with space magic, and it's great. Well, do you mind if we talk? I mean, we've got time.
Yeah.
There's really only two more things to talk about on the Dimension Book line.
What's that?
We've got Skraypers, right? Yep. And then we've got the Minion War kickoff. So,
well, I mean, we have Anvil Galaxy.
And, yes, I mean we've got the
and
Megaversal builder, and right. Yep. The Phase World line has been very robustly handled and put together, and I think the writers that came in on that clearly had a love for Phase World that they then took with and ran. And I'm not saying that they ran in wrong directions. They expanded Phase World. But for me, those first two books, because it was basically like, well, what could Rift's Earth look like if we got our stuff together, if we dealt with all of the threats, and if somehow we miraculously, much like the Prometheans, evolved into our next stage of evolution. There's something special for me about those first two books. Now, don't get me wrong. I love, what is it? Anvil Galaxy and the, Thunderhead, Megaversal builder, and the ships of the Three Galaxies. Really well handled and developed. But this one right here, there's just something, again, much like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, where Gene Roddenberry is like, but what if we actually listen to the better angels on our shoulder? What could it look like? That's what this always kind of felt like to me. Like, you still got, like you said, super, super great heroes and villains, and there's still conflict there. But it was like, maybe 101 PA is not where we have to stay as a species, and there's hope.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's why it became so popular.
Yeah.
Because it just really resonated with people. I mean, CJ happened to catch what I did in Rifts, which is, here's something familiar and yet very different.
Mm-hmm.
And it took off.
So you were telling me stories earlier. How did Skraypers come about? Because Skraypers is this weird dimension book that is really more, if Phase World is, Rift's Earth, possibly. Skraypers kind of feels like, well, what could Heroes Unlimited look like?
Kind of. It's so John Zalesnik came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a dimension book. It's kind of a science fiction superhero setting." And I'm like, great. And again, much like Tim Truman and Flint Henry, he sends me a pile of art and a bunch of notes, and I'm like, man, it sounds great. And so he did Skraypers, and in fact, it's a wraparound cover.
That wraparound cover is great.
And
is it the blazer on the front?
And yes, and which are these energy expulsion type alien beings. They're very human-like, but. And so I said, yeah, sure, John, this stuff looks freaking great. I love the art and I love the concepts. I said, run with it, buddy. And so he did, and like 6 months later, I'm talking with him. And I'm like, "So how's it going?" He's like, "Yeah, it's going. I've been mostly focusing on some additional art and concept, but it's coming." And I got the feeling things weren't going well, but he said, "Yeah, I'm on it." And like a year later, he calls me up, and he's like, and John and I are really close. We've been working together for like, I don't know, 20 or 30 years now. And he's like, "Kev, please don't be mad at me, but writing is hard." And he's like, "I've been working on this and working on this and working on this and working on this. And can I just send you my notes and all the rest of the art? And can you kind of take it over?" And I'm like, "Sure, John, I can do that." But it's all based on his concepts and his art, and there's some cool stuff. It's basically it's what one of the things I liked about it was, we have all these alien invasion stories, but it's always, oh, here's the aliens, and we fight them off, and everything's fine. Well, in this world, and actually several worlds in their galaxy or solar system anyway, the bad guys, the Tarlok, they, which are the guys on the back cover, they won. And so now it's this occupied planet. It's a planet of humanoids that are occupied by these other alien beings. And you're really kind of playing the resistance fighters who are trying to take back their planet, which are the Blazers and some others.
Yeah.
And I liked it, and it did well. It's got great art throughout.
Yeah, I having published a couple of books, I can tell you, dear listener, it is very unusual to have all of the art before the writing is finished, or even most of the art done before the writing is finished.
Well, it's interesting because if you're a fan of John Zalesnik,
yeah,
it's fun because he actually does art in several different styles. You have some pen and ink. You have painted in grayscale. You have sort of some little experimental stuff. It's very cool. Some are like full paintings. Others are more a little bit esoteric, and it's nice stuff. It's interesting to see these 3 or 4 different approaches that John took.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and all the art is his. Again, it's rare to find a book where one artist did all the art or did even half the art. So it's all John art. It's all his concepts, and I just kind of ran with them.
That's awesome. Let's talk Secret of the Atlanteans.
So it's great. It's got a lot of great Chuck Walton art and some other artists. It's got more about Shadow Beast and the dimension they come from, and several more types of shadow beings. It's got complete descriptions and layouts of stone pyramids, like 3 different types of stone pyramids.
Yeah.
It's got more on the Sunarsh. It's got more on all the various clans and where they are. There's a whole bunch of different worlds. It's got all kinds of cool.
So what was the impetus between releasing this as a dimension book as opposed to a source book?
Because it's mostly out in space, the final frontier.
Because the true Atlanteans have dispersed throughout the Megaverse.
Right. So so the basic history, quick history of true Atlanteans, not the Splugorth and the Splugorth's Atlantis, but the true Atlanteans who originally founded Atlantis when they accidentally created a disaster that sent Atlantis not under the waves, but into another dimension. They escaped by scattering across the universe. And since they had destroyed not their home world, but their home continent, they decided to just kind of wander the Megaverse and see what's out there and have no true home. Although eventually the various clans, there's like a dozen or so, they started to settle on different worlds and make them their new world. Although in their minds, they were always going to take Atlantis back somehow, or bring it back. And then, much to their chagrin, I mean, the Splugorth have usurped Atlantis and made it theirs. And so now there's still a plot where they're like, at least among certain factions, clans of true Atlanteans, where it's like, we're going to take back Atlantis. We're going to defeat the Splugorth, who they now know is this like cosmic evil. And, we're going to take Atlantis and make it ours again someday, somehow. And then you've got the more nefarious Sunaj and some of their secrets. And you get a lot of nice little history. Karo Gliba, I love that guy. He just too good, man. And it's a great book, just jam-packed with more magic tattoos and shadow beasts and the frickin' pyramids. I couldn't believe, I'm like reading this manuscript and I'm like, this is awesome, this is cool, I gotta work on this, but that's a cool idea, blah blah blah, this is neat, and it's like, this goes on, and I'm like, shadow beasts, does that really belong in here? Yeah, what the hell, it's great, let's put it in. And it's like, okay,
got to be a little potpourri in a Palladium book. It's
and then it's like the pyramids. Holy crap! Because he completely defines the 3 different types of pyramids.
That's awesome.
So it's one of my of newer releases. It's one of my all-time favorites, and in my mind, it really goes well with Atlantis, Splin Dimensional Market, and Secrets of Atlanteans. To me, that's the triumvirate of Atlantean books. You can't go wrong with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're just epic. And then, we plan to do more. We plan to do more different worlds. We plan to do more of the Three Galaxies. But, it's a matter of, finding the right writers and people.
Getting the right manuscript, getting the right people on it.
Yep. And then time and resources, which we're working on freeing me up and Sean up and some other people. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next discussion.
Sounds good.